Want to be able to explore Zerith Mortis and get out of bounds and see what the creators don't want you to be able to access? Well, use Door of Shadows, and or using Heroic Leap, you'll be able to access most any places that you're not allowed to go. Now, if you wanted to access the Sepulcher of the first ones, all you need is some goblin gliders and to climb up this mountain. It's in the southwest section of the map, and it's a small obstacle course, nothing too major. You just have to keep hopping up all the ledges. Here you can either heroic leap across or goblin glider across. The other things were on cooldown, so I just used the goblin glider. This area can be a little bit tricky. The rocks are slippery, but with a correctly placed leap or Door of Shadows, you can actually kind of like stick and then just continue jumping to the top of the mountain. In the situations where this is unable to work, there is also a world quest called Frog It, and you are able to then just go from the base of the mountain, click on the frog, and he will be able to bring you up as well. He will just start running and bring you to an upper area of the mountains. Then you can just use his 2 and 3 abilities and just really leap your way up. It's really not too difficult. Also, if we weren't supposed to access it, I don't think that they would have us I don't think they would put a chest at the top of here, so me being the loot goblin I had to go get it. But that's alright, because it also kind of helps illustrate the point of, after collecting the chest, there's a moment where I tried using Heroic Leap, but I was unable to get that to work, so I end up using Door of Shadows instead, which you never know, one works over the other in different situations, so it's good to have them both if you're exploring with a warrior. But yeah, once you make it to the peak, all you want to do is just use the goblin glider and aim for the hill on the other side. You have plenty of height to be able to make it, and this is how you access the Sepulcher of the first ones. Sadly, once you make your way to the island, you are unable to access the flight path. I mean, you can click on it, but the rest of the flight paths aren't synced to it, so you're not able to just quickly come back after linking it or something. So anyways, in order to get out of bounds to the area where my mage first was at the beginning of the video, you want to make your way up here, and there's a small little area that you will end up encountering a small invisible barrier, which is no match for the high-tech ability of Heroic Leap. You can see I get stuck here, so I'll Heroic Leap. And once you're over, you can walk back through, but you can't like double back. So you can use both of the abilities to manage to get through any invisible walls, and this is where you end up aiming for the waterfall. So this is where I first saw water that you could actually stand inside of and not on top of, and it ended up sparking an idea of trying to find other water that you can potentially swim in. So this is the pathway in order to be able to access the out of bounds area in the back of the map, where all the textures are unloaded. It's just the flat white plains of non-existence. And yeah, so this is how you access this location. It's pretty straightforward and not too terribly complicated, which is a good thing, and which ended up leading me to spending way too much time here and exploring for really no good reason, but it was still a lot of fun nonetheless, and I would recommend trying it for yourself, seeing if you can find any other weird locations, who knows for what reason. Here I end up playing with the death planes and trying to see like where I can go, where I can walk. Unfortunately for me, this is not a good place to go. Anywhere where it's slightly rendered, there is a death plane after a certain point. After enough deaths and trying to figure out where the death plane is, I kind of found out that it's where this red line is, kind of to that corner in the back. But other than that, if you go beyond that red line, this is the result, and it will teleport you all the ways to your faction's GM res camp. So back to the quest of Swimmable Waters. I ended up spending a bit of time going through the entire zone, slowly zigzagging across all of the locations, and I ended up finding one area inside of Zerith Mortis proper where everybody gets to run around and stuff that you can actually access and swim inside of. Nothing really too special to explore. You can see in my attempts of exploring it that it goes pretty deep, and it's just a chamber that opens up into more chambers, and nothing of value. Can't get out of the map. There's just a death plane. That's it. So I end up making my way back to the Sepulcher and wanting to check out what's on the right side of the raid entrance versus going to the left side. And as you see here, I ended up discovering a fellow demon hunter who also managed to make their way over to the raid island before everybody else. So cheers to you, Reuter. Glad to see that I'm not alone in my ventures of disobeying the GMs at Blizzard. So anyways, I ended up just taking a goblin glider and flying my way over this way, and I have to admit I ended up getting incredibly lucky the way it ended up working. There's an invisible barrier that ends up catching you, and thankfully due to lazy coding I land on a little corner, and then after this I just door shadows through. And yeah, then it's just the waiting game, which took me way too long, but thanks to the miracle of video editing, I can just kind of skip forward and you don't have to wait the painful amount of time that I had to in order to Door of Shadows my way through this location. It did take me a few attempts until I finally found a spot for Door of Shadows to allow me to stick once I finally teleported. But once I did, I was super excited, and yeah, I found this little oasis, and this is probably the best spot that I have found that is like a hidden little gem inside of all of Sepulcher of the first ones. Excitement was already high enough looking at this whole new zone and everything, but then I found water we could swim in, and this is now my new favorite little spot. It's the best. You can swim with the fishies, you get to look around the orbs. There's honestly not that much about it, but just the fact that there's an area in Zerith Mortis in which you can swim makes me super happy, and this is honestly the best little spot in the middle of nowhere that you're not supposed to be. So yeah, definitely wanted to show this off. Don't know why, but this is definitely the thing that I'm most proud of for release day on 9.2. So there's definitely more to this little area that you can run around in if you want to explore for yourself. I don't feel like going over it because the video ends up being egregiously long if I try explaining all the little areas in which you can go yourself, but I just really wanted to show off that using Door of Shadows and Heroic Leap can get you places that you're not supposed to be. This is by far my favorite spot, and it allows you to get a close look at, like, I don't know, the cute little fishies and stuff like that. And the other thing that I find really neat too is if you swim upwards, you can pop through the surface of the water, but then you can't go back through when you're done. So that's alright, you just go back to the other side and hop back in where there's the hole in the water. So yeah, this is where I end up setting up my camp. This is where I'm gonna be hanging out, and maybe even possibly get that fishing drop. See if it manages to drop out here. I don't know.